Welcome to Dice and Quills, where the art of storytelling meets the roll of the dice. I am Darren Ruckle, professional game master and TTRPG writer, here to share the craft behind world building, adventure design, and running unforgettable games. Whether you're a fellow creator, an aspiring pro, or a lifelong player, you're in the right place. So sharpen your quills, ready your dice, and let's dive into the worlds we imagine. Today we're talking about a part of game mastering that's often overlooked, rushed, or just quietly undercooked, the first real moments of your campaign. Not session zero, not safety tools or scheduling or character sheets. We did all that last episode. I'm talking about the first scene, the first minute, the first moment your players are no longer planning, they're playing. Because that first scene, it's everything. It sets tone, it sets rhythm. It sets expectation. It's where players look around the table and ask themselves, do I care about this world? Do I care about this character? Is this a campaign I want to come back to next week? And if the answer is no, even if they can't articulate it, your campaign is already behind. So today, we're breaking down exactly what those first 10 minutes need to do. How to start strong without over-explaining. How to hook the players without railroading them. How to make your story feel like their story, right from the start. Because whether you're opening with a flashback, a tavern, a war zone, or a conversation between strangers on a prison transport ship, this moment matters. And the more deliberate you are about it, the more likely your campaign becomes something people remember, and not just something they played. Let's start with the biggest mistake I see even experienced game masters make when opening a new campaign: mistaking exposition for storytelling. The most common trap in a campaign opener is the info dump. You know the one. You've spent weeks, maybe months, building your world. You've got factions, timelines, geography, politics, a war that ended 30 years ago and shaped the balance of power, a guild system with secret layers, a prophecy that's been misinterpreted for generations. And it's all good stuff. Rich, layered, the kind of depth that makes a setting feel real. But here's the problem. Your players don't care yet. They don't have context. They don't have footholds. They don't know what's important and what's just lore wallpaper. So when you drop them into a 10-minute monologue about the Treaty of Emberfall and the shattering of the Sapphire Compact, their brains do what brains do when they're overwhelmed. They shut off. They nod. They smile. They write nothing down. And then they go back to thinking about their character's accent. This isn't because they're bad players. It's because story is about stakes. And stakes require connection. If I don't know who I am yet, or what I want, or what I'm up against, then none of your beautiful backstory means anything to me yet. So how do you fix it? Simple. You show the world, don't tell it. Open with immediacy. Open with character. Let the players experience the tone before you start naming it. Instead of saying, this is a brutal frontier where survival is uncertain, start with a flash of violence, a public execution, a desperate bargain, a neighbor closing their shutters at the first sign of trouble. Instead of explaining the economic collapse, start with a coin purse that buys nothing. A market riot, a family selling sacred heirlooms for bread. Start in the effect. Let the world breathe around them, naturally, and trust that the details will land when they have a reason to pay attention. You're not teaching a history class. You're making a first impression. And first impressions are always about feeling, not facts. Let's talk about the tavern. It's the punchline of campaign openings. You all meet in a tavern. We roll our eyes. We laugh. We do it anyway. And look, it's not inherently bad. A tavern is familiar. It's grounded. It's a place where strangers might plausibly meet, where quests might plausibly begin. It's functional, but it's also lazy, and more importantly, it's usually empty. Not of people, of meaning. Because unless you do the work to make that tavern matter, all you've really said is, you're sitting next to each other. Something will happen soon. Please pretend to care. And that's not how you open a story. Here's the fix. Don't open with setting. Open with intention. Instead of saying, "You're all at the same inn," ask yourself, what are you each here for? One's waiting for a contact. One's tracking a bounty. One's laying low after a job gone wrong. One's about to burn the place down. Now we're not just sharing a space, we're sharing pressure, or start even sharper. The tavern's on fire. The door slams open. Someone screams your name. The stew tastes like blood and no one else notices. Same location, different tone, different momentum. The place isn't the problem. The problem is starting flat, starting passive, starting with the assumption that something interesting will happen soon. Instead of making sure something interesting is happening now, think of your opening scene as a thesis statement. What kind of campaign is this? What kind of decisions will players make? What kind of tone are you inviting? You don't have to say it out loud. You show it. You let the world speak in action, consequence, and detail. And you let the players respond immediately. That's how you avoid the dead air of the passive tavern start. That's how you turn "you're sitting at a table" into "you're caught in something that's already in motion." Here's what those first 10 minutes need to do. And if they don't, your campaign is going to feel like it's dragging, even if it technically starts on time. First, you need to ground the players. That doesn't mean world build, it means orient. Where are we? What's the vibe? What can we see, hear, feel? You don't need 5 paragraphs of scenery, but you do need specificity. A smoky haze in the air, mud caked on boots, temple bells ringing at the wrong hour. Give them sensory entry points. Give them friction. Second, and this is the big one, you need to create a reason to act. Players will not take initiative unless something makes them. That could be a mystery, a threat, a temptation, an unanswered question. But there has to be something that interrupts stillness. Too many game masters open slow. You're here. It's peaceful. What do you want to do? That's not a hook. That's a shrug. A strong opening provokes. It says, "This world moves. What do you do about it?" That movement can be external, an explosion, a scream, a crime in progress. Or it can be internal, an offer, a secret, a realization. Doesn't matter. What matters is the shift from passive to active. The third thing your opening needs to do? Let the players be themselves. That sounds obvious, but it's one of the most common fail points in opening design. You give them a scene, and you already know what it's supposed to do. Introduce this NPC, start this plot line, deliver this piece of exposition. And when a player says or does something unexpected, you try to steer it back toward the plan. Don't. If your opener doesn't let the players show who they are, through choice, through conflict, through attention, then it's not really an opening. It's a cutscene. Let them act. Let them test the water. Let them push. Even if it surprises you, especially if it surprises you. Because now they're in the story, not just watching it start, helping it start. Last thing, close the loop. The best opening scenes don't just toss a problem out. They resolve something. Not the whole problem, just one piece, a choice, a reveal, a shift. Something that says, we're playing now, and what you do matters. Let's talk about campaign openers that fit the shape of the story you're telling. Because one of the fastest ways to undercut your own campaign is to choose an opening scene that's structurally misaligned with everything that comes after. Let's say you're running a political intrigue campaign, factions, secrets, shifting loyalties, long games. And you start with a combat set piece, bandits on the road, initiative on round 1. Now, is that fun? Sure, but what are you teaching the players? You're telling them this is a game about tactics and violence. That problems come with hit points. That speed matters more than nuance. Even if you pivot hard in session 2, the expectation has already been set. And the longer that mismatch goes uncorrected, the more disoriented your players become. So here's the move. Start with a scene that teaches your players how to play your world. If the campaign is about loyalty, start with a moment of betrayal. If the campaign is about moral ambiguity, open with a no-win choice. If the campaign is about cosmic horror, open with something wrong. and no one explains it. The form of your opening needs to echo the content of the campaign. And you don't need to overthink it. Sometimes that means beginning in media res, mid-action, a heist gone sideways, a negotiation already in progress, a battle about to tip. That format is perfect for fast, momentum-heavy stories. High action, high pressure. Sometimes it means opening quiet, a dream sequence, a character flashback, a ritual, something internal. That works beautifully for emotionally driven campaigns where character arcs are front and center. And sometimes it's a cold open with no player characters at all, just a glimpse of something dark or strange happening elsewhere. Something to set tone before the players ever step onto the stage. That works best when mystery and dread are key ingredients. There's no best shape, but there is a right shape for the story you're about to tell. Pick that. Trust that. Build everything else on top of it. Let's look at some real-world examples, actual campaign openers that worked, and why they did. The first one comes from a long-running political fantasy game. The GM wanted to establish tone fast. The nobility is corrupt, power is dangerous, and the players are walking into a world already in motion. So instead of starting at a gate or a throne room or some neutral ground, the first scene was a funeral. A high-born lord, poisoned. No one knows who did it. The room is full of enemies forced to pretend to be friends. The players are there as agents, servants, or observers. But every one of them has a stake. And here's the move. The GM handed each player a sealed envelope before the game. One had a blackmail note. One had a secret message from the dead man. One had a memory triggered by the funeral. No combat, no exposition, just a tense, layered social scene. And it worked because it taught the players the shape of the world. Secrets matter. Appearances lie. Every detail is a potential weapon. And from moment one, the players leaned in. They weren't waiting for the story to begin. They were already inside it. Now here's a very different example. A pulp sci-fi game with a crew of smugglers. The campaign opened with a crash. Literally. A shuttle spiraling into a jungle, alarms blaring. The players thrown together in zero-G chaos. They'd never met. They were each passengers, one fleeing, one hunting, one undercover. They had 90 seconds to survive impact and figure out who to trust. It was loud, messy, physical, and absolutely perfect for the tone the GM wanted. Improvisational, high stakes, momentum over planning. And here's what both scenes had in common. They gave the players choices that mattered. In the funeral, it was who to talk to, who to trust, and what to reveal. In the crash, it was who to save, what to grab, and where to go. Neither was about solving a problem. Both were about stepping into a world where choices already had weight. That's how you build buy-in. That's how you make players say, I need to know what happens next, before they even know each other's names. Let's talk about your first NPCs. Because they're not just part of the scene. They are the scene. The first people your players meet, the first voices they hear, shape how they understand the world. They teach the players what to expect, what tone the story lives in, how serious things are, what kind of relationships are possible. You're not just introducing a quest giver or a side character, you're modeling the emotional rules of the world. So think carefully, who speaks first? Is it a frightened villager, a tired guard, a flamboyant fixer with a shady grin, a priest too calm for the moment? The personality of that NPC is the first signal your players get. And whether they know it or not, they're calibrating their own characters around it. A quiet, reverent NPC invites stillness, reflection. A slower tone, a sharp, sarcastic one invites wit. Jabs, banter. A blunt, desperate one invites urgency. These things ripple, so use them deliberately. Also, and this is critical, let that NPC respond to the players authentically. Don't make them a dispenser. Don't have them wait patiently while the party riffs for 20 minutes and then deliver their speech as if nothing happened. Let them react, Let them change. If the players interrupt, they get irritated. If they show kindness, maybe the NPC softens. If they lie, maybe the NPC catches them or lies right back. That interaction teaches the players what kind of world they're in. Is this a place where people listen? Where truth matters? Where fear lives in the corners of every sentence? And your players are watching. They're clocking the subtext, even if they don't consciously realize it. Because in a first scene, the players are still looking for footing. And if your NPCs feel real, feel responsive, feel alive, they'll stop waiting for the game to start, and they'll start playing. Let's go over what not to include in your opening scene, because some of the most common instincts game masters have when starting a campaign are also the ones most likely to kill energy, waste time, or quietly derail tone before the story even gets moving. The first, and maybe the biggest, is shopping. I know. The players just made their characters. They want to buy gear. They want to pick up rations or flavor weapons or weird supplies just in case. But here's the truth. Shopping in Session 1 is almost always a stall. It's players trying to buy time because they don't know what the campaign is about yet. They're trying to prepare for something they can't name, and it makes the story feel flat. It's not their fault, it's yours. Because a strong opening doesn't leave room for shopping. It starts with stakes, urgency, motion. That doesn't mean the scene has to be a chase or a combat. It just means the players should have a reason to care before they reach for their coin purses. The second misstep? Forced group cohesion. You're all on the same caravan. You're all hired by the same patron. You've all been summoned to the capital city. These setups sound functional, and technically they are. But emotionally, they're empty. You're not giving the players a reason to care about each other. You're just shoving them into the same scene and hoping they improvise chemistry. Sometimes it works, usually it doesn't. Instead, try to build tension, connection, or friction into the opening on purpose. Maybe two of them are chasing the same mark, but from different angles. Maybe one has leverage on another, and this is the first time they've met in person. Maybe they've heard of each other, but only through lies. Now we've got scenes. Now we've got layers. Now we're not just in the same room, we're in the same story. The third trap? Tone whiplash. This usually happens when the GM wants to start light and then ramp into something serious, or vice versa. But if your opening scene is a goofy bar brawl with pratfalls and exploding pies, and the next scene is the burned-down village of orphans, your players aren't going to shift gears gracefully. They're going to feel like they were watching two different pilots spliced together. Set the tone you want from the beginning. Not the maximum version of it, but the direction. Is this story grim, weird, thoughtful, operatic? Pick your emotional frequency early and build into it. Your players will follow, but only if you give them a direction to follow from the start. So let's pull back a little and look at your Session 1 structure as a whole. Because your opening scene might only be 10 minutes long, but it sets the rhythm for everything that follows. And too often, game masters come in hot with a dramatic hook, and then have nothing after it. Or worse, they open slow and wait too long to do anything meaningful, thinking they're building up to it. Both approaches fumble for the same reason. They haven't thought about Session 1 as a complete arc. Not a campaign arc, a session arc. So here's a structure that works. Start in motion. Doesn't have to be fast, just active. Something is happening. The world is already turning. The players are entering a scene that would still exist even if they weren't in it. That's your opening 10 to 15 minutes. From there, you expand. Players make choices. They learn names. They explore. Maybe split up. Maybe follow a lead. This is your discovery phase, the place where they start building investment. Don't overfill this part, 1 or 2 scenes. Keep the world small. You're not trying to show them everything. You're showing them the corner of the world that will teach them how the rest works. Then, and this is key, close with consequence. Give them a choice that has a cost. Not a big one, just real. They decide who to save, what to reveal, who to follow, and whatever they pick, make sure something shifts because of it. Maybe an ally gets hurt, maybe a door closes, maybe a secret slips loose. It doesn't have to derail anything, it just needs to matter. Because when players end session 1 feeling like they've already changed something, like their actions left a mark, they come back to session 2 hungry. And that's what you want. Not resolution, not comfort, momentum. Something they want to see through. Something they want to follow up on. Something they started and now can't let go of. End your first session with that, and you've already won. So let's bring this home. The opening scene of your campaign is not about impressing your players. It's not about clever twists, epic reveals, or showing off your world building. It's about building trust. It's about showing them, in real time, what kind of story you're all about to tell, and why it's worth telling together. It's the moment where the game stops being hypothetical and starts being real. And when you get it right, that first scene doesn't just pull them in. It defines the campaign. Because long after the plot evolves and the world changes and the final boss is just a memory, players will still remember how it began, where they were, what they did, what they felt. They'll remember that first moment they realized, I care about this. That's the power of a good opening. It's not flashy, it's foundational. So make it count. Next time on Dice and Quills, we're looking at something game masters often struggle with: running scenes for just one player. Whether it's downtime roleplay, solo arcs, or party splits, we'll dig into how to run intimate, focused moments that still feel meaningful, without leaving the rest of the table behind. Until next time, sharpen your quills, ready your dice. And remember, a story doesn't begin when the plot starts moving. It begins the moment someone chooses to care.